You turn on the tap. The water still flows. But for how much longer? Recently, Florida has been experiencing its longest dry spell in the past 25 years. Based on the latest reports from Fox Weather and Fox 35 Orlando, worsening drought conditions have forced local water authorities to declare a state of emergency. This is no longer just a warning. Phase 3 water restrictions are now active across many regions, where violating watering schedules can lead to fines worth hundreds of dollars, often issued without any prior notice. Water reserves in the Floridan aquifer have dropped sharply, while saltwater has begun creeping into wells in coastal cities. This is no longer a future concern. It is a real, ongoing crisis that is actively reshaping how millions of people live across the following 15 cities. Tampa has now become ground zero for the water crisis in West Florida. As the largest city in the Bay Area, its dependence on the Hillsborough River and the Tampa Bay Regional Reservoir has reached a critical breaking point, driven by a rainfall deficit of 13 inches below the yearly average. By March 2026, city officials had already activated a modified Phase 3 protocol, legally banning most non-essential water usage. This includes a full shutdown of decorative fountains and strict limits on activities like washing cars at home. Walking along Bayshore Boulevard today, it is hard to ignore the widespread patches of dry, yellowing grass replacing what used to be lush green landscapes. Lawn watering is now restricted to just once per week. At the same time, rapid population growth in Hillsborough County continues to place enormous pressure on an already aging water system, creating a growing imbalance where demand far exceeds the natural ability of underground reserves to recover. Just across the bridge to the west, a neighboring city has taken an even tougher stance. St. Petersburg has shifted from simple public outreach to strict law enforcement. Starting in April 2026, the city introduced a zero-tolerance policy where residents who break watering rules are immediately fined $193. No warnings, no second chances. Once celebrated as the Sunshine City, St. Petersburg gained its reputation in the early 20th century as a health retreat known for its clean air and abundant water. Today, that image is being challenged by a harsh new reality. Freshwater supplies in Pinellas County are extremely limited, and conservation has become a top priority. Water Patrol officers now actively monitor neighborhoods during restricted hours, making sure no water is wasted. The city now faces a difficult balancing act, meeting the daily needs of its residents while preserving the green landscapes that attract tourists, all without the reliable rainfall it once depended on. When it comes to contradictions, few places are as striking as Cape Coral, a city surrounded by water, yet struggling to secure enough of it for daily use. Often called the Venice of America, Cape Coral is built around more than 400 miles of canals. But despite their size and presence, these waterways do not provide drinkable water, and during severe drought conditions, they offer little relief. The situation has recently worsened after a major failure in the reclaimed water pipeline system, which is typically used for irrigation. Without that recycled supply, some residents have resorted to illegally tapping into groundwater wells, putting additional strain on the lower Hawthorne aquifer. The city's naturally porous soil only adds to the risk, increasing the likelihood of sinkholes as groundwater levels continue to drop. Originally developed during a massive real estate boom in the 1950s, Cape Coral is now facing the consequences of rapid expansion that was never fully matched with a sustainable long-term water strategy. This concern over long-term sustainability has now reached one of the most personal parts of public life, as seen in the center of Sarasota. Here, the water crisis is no longer just a number in a news report. It has already reached restaurant tables. City officials have instructed hotels and restaurants to serve drinking water only when customers specifically ask for it, a symbolic but important step in cutting water use. Sarasota County has historically relied heavily on deep groundwater wells, but continued drilling to support major residential expansion in places like Lakewood Ranch has pushed water levels to a critical point. A city known for its art scene and the legacy of the Ringling Circus now faces a difficult choice: slow down growth or risk a future where the taps cannot keep up. While Sarasota is dealing with upscale development, the world's largest retirement community is facing its own version of the same pressure. The Villages is a demographic giant, and its water use is just as massive. With thousands of acres of golf courses expected to stay green year-round, the community consumes an enormous amount of water per person. Now, under Phase 2 severe shortage conditions, management has been forced to do things that once seemed unthinkable, allowing parts of fairways to dry out and completely reworking automated irrigation systems. What makes this even more serious is the fact that the Villages sits in a hydrologically sensitive part of Central Florida, where excessive groundwater pumping can directly affect nearby lakes. Moving toward the coast, the water crisis takes on a more permanent and dangerous form beneath the ground itself. Venice may be known for beautiful beaches and shark tooth hunting, but it is also on the front line of saltwater intrusion. As freshwater levels in the aquifer continue to fall because of drought and heavy pumping, seawater is beginning to move in and fill the empty spaces underground. City wells in Venice have already reported sharp increases in chloride levels, a warning sign that water quality could suffer lasting damage. Historically, Venice was designed as a planned city with an Italian Renaissance style, but elegant architecture offers no protection against the slow advance of salt water below the surface. Without improvement, the city may eventually be forced to spend millions on desalination or advanced treatment systems, an enormous burden for a smaller community with dense landscaping and a strong dependence on fresh water. The threat of saltwater intrusion is just as serious in this riverfront city. Punta Gorda depends heavily on Shell Creek and seasonal rainfall to replenish its reservoirs. But with a record-breaking dry season stretching across the past 25 years, river flow has slowed to the point where it is nearly stagnant. This has created a dangerous situation where salt water from Charlotte Harbor is pushing upstream, getting closer to the city's freshwater intake points. Punta Gorda takes pride in its history as one of the oldest harbor towns in Florida. Yet, that same location at the mouth of a river has now become a major vulnerability. Without enough rainfall to push the saltwater back, the city's filtration system is forced to work harder, using more chemicals just to keep water safe for consumption, adding extra strain during an already challenging economic and energy climate. In New Port Richey, the crisis shows up in a different but equally concerning way: falling water pressure. As regional reservoirs across Pasco County continue to shrink, the distribution system struggles to maintain consistent pressure, especially during peak morning hours. Residents in several neighborhoods have started reporting weak water flow, something that directly disrupts daily routines. Once known as a retreat for silent film stars like Thomas Meghan, the city is now trying to reshape itself into a water-conscious community. Local campaigns are encouraging residents to replace traditional lawns with native Florida landscaping, also known as xeriscaping, in an effort to reduce irrigation demand and ease pressure on the system. Dunedin, on the other hand, has taken a more structured and preventative approach in response to the March 2026 drought. Known for celebrating its Scottish heritage through events like the Highland Games, the city has introduced strict rules that prohibit watering plants, including ornamental landscaping, during the hottest hours of the day, from 8 in the morning until 6 in the evening. The reasoning is straightforward. Under Florida's intense sun, most of that water simply evaporates, making daytime watering highly inefficient. Dunedin was actually one of the first cities in Florida to build its own reverse osmosis water treatment facility. However, even that system is now being pushed close to its limits due to declining raw water quality. While residents have been largely cooperative, ongoing residential growth across Pinellas County continues to increase demand, turning local conservation efforts into a race against time. This regional pressure is also strongly felt in a historic city best known for its sponge diving industry. Tarpon Springs is home to the largest Greek community in the United States, where for over a century, life has been closely tied to the waters of the Anclote River. But today, the very industries that define the city, tourism and sponge harvesting, are being challenged by a growing issue on land: the availability of fresh water. Rapid population growth across northern Pinellas County has caused water demand to surge, while local groundwater sources are beginning to show clear signs of strain. In response, city officials are prioritizing early leak detection, deploying acoustic sensor technology to identify hidden pipe failures and ensure that not even a single drop of water is wasted. Despite being one of the smallest cities on this list, Belleair Bluffs enforces some of the strictest water regulations. With limited space and a dense population, any violation of water rules is treated as a serious threat to the entire system's pressure and stability. Local authorities do not hesitate to issue fines worth hundreds of dollars to residents who leave hoses running or water outside designated schedules. The water crisis here is also closely tied to fire risk. Dry grass and shrubs in this upscale residential area can quickly turn into fuel for fast-spreading wildfires. Because of that, water conservation is not just about saving resources. It is directly tied to public safety and the protection of high-value properties during Florida's prolonged dry conditions. Moving away from the coast and into Florida's typically lush interior, Ocala, known as the horse capital of the world, has long been associated with fertile land and abundant natural springs like Silver Springs. But that image is beginning to change. Fields that once stayed green are now showing signs of dryness, with soil turning harder and dustier than usual. Even though Ocala sits above one of the most productive sections of the Floridan aquifer, water levels in its iconic springs have dropped by as much as 20% compared to historical averages. This decline is already affecting large horse farms that depend on massive amounts of water for livestock care and facility maintenance. The situation in Ocala sends a clear message: past abundance does not guarantee future security. Groundwater extraction for bottled water production, combined with the needs of a growing population, is starting to exceed the aquifer's natural ability to recharge. The decline of natural springs is now creating a ripple effect on the local tourism economy, especially in places like Dunnellon. This small town lives and breathes through the health of the Rainbow River. As one of Florida's top ecotourism destinations for tubing and diving, the river's crystal clear water is not just a feature, it is the foundation of the entire local economy. But by March 2026, the spring flow feeding the river has dropped to alarming levels. Compared to the 1960s, it has decreased by around 25%. As water levels fall, boat navigation becomes more difficult, and the visual beauty that once attracted visitors begins to fade. For residents of Dunnellon, the concern is no longer hypothetical. If the water crisis continues, they risk losing not only their household supply, but also the primary source of their income. Amid this crisis, one city stands out for trying to fight back using advanced water recycling technology. Altamonte Springs is often seen as a model for the future of water management in Florida, largely because of Project Apricot. Since the 1980s, the city has been a leader in reclaiming wastewater for irrigation, significantly reducing its reliance on fresh groundwater. But even this system is now facing pressure unlike anything before. As evaporation rates rise due to extreme heat, and as less wastewater becomes available because residents are conserving more at home, the recycling system itself begins to feel the strain. Altamonte Springs shows that technology can be part of the solution, but it is not a complete fix. The city is now working to remind residents that even with advanced systems in place, conservation is still essential, especially since all of Central Florida shares the same stressed hydrological system. At the peak of this crisis stands Florida's most iconic metropolis. It may sound surprising, but Miami represents the most complex and multi-dimensional water threat on this list. The issue here is not just a lack of water, it is the presence of the wrong kind of water. Rising sea levels combined with extreme drought have pushed saltwater intrusion in the Biscayne aquifer to unprecedented levels. Without enough freshwater pressure from rainfall to push it back, this vital drinking water source for millions in Miami-Dade County is at serious risk of permanent damage. City officials are now racing against time to build large-scale desalination plants and advanced wastewater treatment systems, projects that come with multi-billion-dollar costs. In Miami, clean water is on the verge of becoming a luxury, serving as a stark reminder that even the most modern and globally recognized cities remain deeply vulnerable to changes in natural water cycles. The water crisis affecting these 15 cities across Florida makes one thing clear: access to clean water can no longer be taken for granted. From strict restrictions in Tampa to long-term threats in Miami, each region is being forced to rethink its relationship with natural resources. In the end, technology and policy can only delay the consequences. The real long-term solution depends on collective awareness, learning to value every drop before the source itself begins to disappear.